Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We have Miss Alice Slater back in the studio. Thank you, Alice, for appearing again.
Thank you.
Welcome, Alice.
Hi.
We're going to continue our chats. We had lunch with you today, and you were there, ready. Come in. She has her wonderful little outfit on, all relaxed.
Well,
I'm ready
thank
to
you.
talk today.
And you walked from 3rd Avenue to here?
Yes, I had a doctor's appointment.
Wow.
So that was good exercise with my walker.
Well, Alice is going to be here for our 3rd podcast with Aging with Grace and Purpose. And she says she will come on again. She loves being on.
Thank you so much.
Well, I have a lot of good stories, I think.
Yes.
It's been a long life.
I hope you didn't finish telling your story upstairs. We were having lunch because...
Yeah, no, there's more. There's always more.
Yeah, Debbie said she had many good stories that I haven't heard, so I can't wait.
So do you want to hear one of the old ones that we
Yeah.
didn't have before or that didn't get recorded
that'd be
properly?
great.
Oh.
We had the audio
Yeah,
issue.
we can do the mink coat one. That we could start. That's a funny one.
Start from the mink coat?
Yeah, because I think that's my best story when I think about it. I mean, but anyway, I call it the mink coat story. And my mother, who was living in the Bronx, and had, she was like first generation American, the American dream, she had a mink coat. And when she moved to Florida, she gave it to me because she retired to Florida. And at that time, I was working as a fundraiser for the Anti-Defamation League. And I wore my mink coat every day like a uniform.
Right.
Because I was working with all these people and doing dinners at the Plaza and the Waldorf to raise money for the Anti-Defamation League. And I was out to lunch with one of my chairs. The dinners were organized by industry, and this was the book publishing industry, and we had Archie Comics had a guest of honor, and Gloria Goldwater and John Goldwater were the president, and I was out with Gloria planning the dinner. And we're on Madison Avenue in a very lovely restaurant, and we're having lunch, and she says to me, "Oh, do you mind if I just go across the street to Yves Saint Laurent? There are these slippers I didn't get in France, and I want to see." I said, "Of course not. I mean, in a million years, I haven't been ever to Yves Saint Laurent." But I go have my mink coat, so I go in, and I'm sitting at the store in the foyer, and she's looking at these black felt slippers that are like $400.
Oh, my
What
goodness.
is this?
Wow.
And as I'm sitting there, there's a platform in front of me, and like 2 steps up, and there's a woman in a 3-way mirror with 2 guys draping a plaid wool scarf around her cowl-neck sweater. And I look in the mirror, and it's Jackie Kennedy. And I smile at her, and she smiles back at me. I am dressed exactly like Jackie Kennedy. I have a cowl-neck sweater with a wool plaid scarf and a wool plaid skirt and leather boots, except my stuff came from Klein's, not Yves Saint
Yeah,
Laurent.
but you were fashionable chic.
So I was totally, justified in my fashion taste. And then the coat goes home. It's in the closet. I go to law school. I used to have to put it in storage every year. I didn't even put it in storage. Nobody was wearing mink coats. I certainly wasn't going to wear it to law school. And Peter was throwing paint on fur coats, not to wear.
Oh, yeah, they were
It
against
was very
that.
un-PC.
Yeah, they were against
And
that.
it just hung in the closet. I just forgot all about it. And about 20 years later, we were having a meeting at the United Nations, and my friend Pamela from California was staying with me, and we were forming this Abolition 2000 network to get rid of nuclear weapons, and we were going to the meetings, and she stayed with me. Because I live in the Manhattan, so I had international guests. And on Saturday, we're together, and we go to Barnes and Nobles, and she's looking at this book of birthdays. And she has it open to October 22nd. And I say, "Pamela, why are you looking at October 22nd? That's my mother's birthday. She said, it's my mother's birthday. I said, really? She's like, wow, they have the same birthday. So that was interesting. And then we come back that night and we have dinner and we're laying on the sofa, we're having wine and we're talking about Abolition 2000 and men and life and love. And I said, tell me about your mother. I think it's so incredible that our mothers have the same birthday. Is she happy with her life? Because my mother's always been very content. She always said she had everything she always wanted. Pamela said, yes, but she has one regret. I said, what's her regret? She never had a mink coat.
That's very important.
I get up, I walk to the closet, I take out my mink coat, I say, give her my mother's. And she took the mink coat back to California. And I got this lovely note from her mother with a little angel pin thanking me. And I said to her, don't tell anyone. My kids will think I'm nuts that I gave away the mink. Anyway, years later, I tell my mother this story. She says, I wasn't worth anything anyway.
Oh, gosh. That's funny.
But anyway,
But
that was
That
amazing.
was an important thing to have then.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's so funny when I've heard the story a few times and I still find it so funny.
When you hear a good story, you like to hear it a few times.
Right.
But I was. You wanted to ask me about the Nobel
Yes.
Prize because Pamela and I were working. We formed Abolition 2000. We did a model treaty
Right.
to eliminate nuclear weapons. We actually did a model for an international renewable energy agency because every nuclear power plant is a bomb factory.
Right.
I mean, that's how you get the bombs is from the nuclear power.
But their waste
Right.
is,
So our Abolition 2000 network acknowledged that not only do we have to eliminate nuclear weapons, we have to eliminate nuclear power or you'll never
Right.
get rid of the bomb.
Right.
And I was working at a nonprofit at that time, GRACE, Global Resource Action Center for the Environment. We did a treaty for an International Renewable Energy Agency, and that made its way through the UN. It's been established, and they're working to phase out. But right now, there's a nuclear renaissance on power. I mean, we have to really take these guys on. Crazy. So anyway, what was interesting to me is that we had this movie this year, Oppenheimer, and then the Nobel Committee gave the Peace Prize to, how do we say Hidankyo? Hidankyo,
Right.
which is the Japanese survivors group,
Right.
the Hibakusha, that
Hibakusha
survived the
group.
horrible bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killed 160,000 people in one city, 140,000 in another immediately, and then years after, all kinds of radiation deaths
Right.
and sickness and illness. But these are the survivors, and they are always at meetings talking about how we have to eliminate nuclear weapons, and we're really at a dangerous point right now. I mean,
Right.
for a while we were getting rid of them. We went from 80,000 on the planet
Right.
to 30,000. There are now now they're like 16,000 on the planet, and 15,000 of them are in the U.S. and Russia. All the other countries have 1,000. That's England, France, China, Israel,
Pakistan?
India, Pakistan, and North Korea, 7, have 1,000. And the U.S. and Russia have 13,000. And like each of us have about 2,500 on missiles pointed at each other, targeting every city. And the Chinese, this is the wisdom of the East, they keep the warheads separate from the missiles. If China wants to shoot a nuclear bomb, they have to screw the warhead onto the missile. It's not loaded and cocked and ready to go.
It's not ready to go.
Right. We're ready to go, us in Russia. And it's not even somebody would do it deliberately. There have been accidents where, they fall off. We had 38 airplane crashes. They used to carry them all the time in airplanes. And they never went off. 2 of them, one spewed a little plutonium in Tule, Greenland, and another one in Palomar, Spain, and they cleaned it up. And then in the 80s, we got this new Department of Defense guy in America that grounded all the planes. He said, I'm not letting them fly. I mean, this was smart, right? But anyway, now Obama negotiated a little deal with Medvedev when Medvedev was president of Russia to cut about another 1,500 missiles from our arsenals. And to get that deal, he made another deal for $1 trillion over the next 20 years for a whole new nuclear arsenal, missiles, airplanes, Obama. And then Trump increased it and Biden increased it, and we are now talking about actually going back to nuclear testing. You know, Kennedy, when the Russians put missiles in Cuba, that was the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy wanted to end it peacefully, and his military was telling him to bomb the missiles and bomb Cuba, and he talked secretly to Khrushchev. And Khrushchev said they put their missiles into Cuba because we had put ours into Turkey, which was on Russia's border.
Right.
None of this was reported. This was secret. And Khrushchev, I learned about it lately, and Khrushchev said to Kennedy, if you take your missiles out of Turkey, we'll take ours out of Cuba.
So they negotiated behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, behind them. The Pentagon didn't know. It was just like his brother was helping Bobby Kennedy. And Kennedy said, okay, but you can't announce it. They'll never let me do it. And Khrushchev took his missiles out, and 6 months later we took ours out of Turkey. And they're back. We have missiles in Turkey, in 5 NATO countries, Turkey, Germany, Holland, Italy,
Now it's really increased. The missiles.
No, but
it's crazy.
we're putting them, the U.S. is doing this.
Yeah.
And Russia, for the first time, put them into Belarus. They never had them out. They're just like, you're going to do that to us? Plus, people do not know this. They have to know this. They're not reading right.
The president can do that, negotiate behind the scene.
If he doesn't tell anybody.
It's more critical than now we are coming the presidential election up, and who can do the negotiation? Which candidate?
No, but first of all, the way this guy, I don't even want to talk about this government. I mean, the guy is senile, and it's. But the other thing, there's a group now that's promoting Kennedy's peace speech. He gave a speech at American University 6 months before he was shot, saying that we're enemies with Russia and we don't like their system, but they have children just like we have children. They love their children. We love our children. So I am going to stop nuclear testing in the atmosphere. He wanted to test all of it. We kept blowing up nukes in Nevada and in the Pacific. They wouldn't let him stop underground testing, but they let him stop he says, I am announcing that the U.S. will not test another nuclear weapon unless Russia does. And Khrushchev immediately announced, we're just going to stop too. And they signed the partial test ban treaty to stop atmospheric testing. Then we negotiated the complete test ban, which we got Clinton to sign, to stop underground testing. Right. So we signed it, Russia signed it, they ratified it, which is where your Senate or your new Duma, votes to approve the president's signature. We never ratified it in America. And as soon as Kennedy signed it, Clinton, he gave the weapons lab $6 billion for stockpile stewardship and subcritical testing. And they were testing in the labs and doing underground tests in Nevada where they blew up plutonium with chemicals, but it didn't have a chain reaction. So Clinton said it's not a test. Like I didn't inhale, I didn't have sex with that woman.
Test.
I'm not testing.
It's testing.
So, of course, as soon as we do it, Russia does. They do everything we do. As a matter of fact, Stalin asked Truman to turn the bomb over to the United Nations When we formed, we defeated Hitler, and 27 million Russians were killed. And we defeated Hitler together. We formed the United Nations together to end the scourge of war, and the first resolution was for nuclear disarmament. And Stalin said to Truman, turn the bomb over to the UN under UN supervision, and we wouldn't. So Russia got the bomb. It's always us. We did the first test, we did the first bomb, we did the subcriticals, they did the subcriticals, we put things in NATO, now they just put one in Belarus, and everybody's saying how terrible that Putin did it, but nobody says what we did. So it's not a good time for nuclear weapons.
So can we read that in New York Times?
No, of course not, and I'll tell you why. I was telling her that story. I am friendly with a man named Ray McGovern. He was a former CIA agent. He grew up in the Bronx. He went to Fordham University. And, President Eisenhower, who was the general that won World War II, warned us in his farewell address to be aware of the military-industrial complex, that it has too much influence in Congress, and the military is having too much influence on our politics. And Ray McGovern said to me one day, Alice, it's not the military-industrial complex. It's the Mickey Mat. I said, Ray, what's the Mickey Mat?
Mickey back.
The military-industrial, congressional, intelligence, academic think tank complex. They're all in bed with each other, and they're crafting this message to hate Russia, to hate China, to want war. They're making a killing on killing. They're owned by all these wealthy corporations. I mean, the U.S. is like the empire. It's got to go, They're actually ganging up on us lately, with the BRICS and the thing about Kennedy, after he did that, 5 months later he was dead.
Yeah, they killed him. They assassinated
And
him.
nobody ever believed. I was watching television. My husband worked for CBS. He didn't come home for 3 days. He was in the news department. The one bullet was supposed to go through the governor and then kill Kennedy, and then the next day the assassin gets killed at the police station.
That was too convenient, yeah.
So, anyway.
It was news in Japan also, of course,
Yeah.
the assassination. And my mother said she started to have contractions, and she gave birth to my brother the following day.
It brought away. Was he premature?
No,
It was
exactly 1963.
Too much excitement.
But there are so many kids who are born because the mothers had
Oh, gosh.
contractions. They were rushed to the hospital, gave birth.
Anyway, there's another thing I want to say in the context of today, that Gorbachev let go of all of Eastern Europe without a shot. He ended the Warsaw Pact, and he was very nervous about a unified Germany, because they had divided Germany,
Right.
East and West, and had a wall, because Germany killed 27 million Russians. He was nervous about them going into NATO, and he said to Reagan, don't let them go into NATO. And Reagan says, let them go in, we'll watch them, but we give you our word, we will not expand NATO 1 inch to the east. And Clinton came in. This has nothing to do with Republicans, Democrats. Clinton came in and bombed Serbia, over UN veto. That's the first time we ever did a war over the UN veto. You're not allowed to do war unless you're under imminent threat of attack. Well, Serbia was not about to attack us, Kosovo. And then they kept taking more and more people in, and Putin kept saying, don't take Ukraine, it's on our border, like we wouldn't let Cuba be part of Russian alliance.
Right.
And we just totally ignored him. He even at one point asked if Russia could join NATO, Putin. And we said no. They didn't want to be our enemy.
Yeah.
But we forced it, because that's how we're making a killing on killing. That's how we're selling all the weapons. That's how they're making money
It's a
on
money machine. Like they
Right,
say, they
and
make
800 U.S. bases in 87 countries. I mean, Russia has like 3 bases. China has 2. And this was Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State under Obama, did the pivot to Asia. And we've put new bases around China in Guam, in Philippines, and Japan. And we're selling arms to Taiwan. I mean, Nixon and Kissinger made a deal with China. We used to call Taiwan China. China wasn't allowed to vote in the UN. It was Taiwan was China. And they were nervous about China and Russia getting too friendly. So they made a deal with Mao. They recognized him. They said, okay, you're China. and what are we going to do about Taiwan? We won't do anything. Let it work out. We'll see. We'll stay neutral. We won't be involved in what you do with Taiwan. All of a sudden, we're giving them arms. And we fomented a coup d'etat in Ukraine. You know, we were supporting. Ukraine had a government that wanted to go with the Russian economic market instead of the EU because Russia was offering them a better deal. And they overthrew that government. And they put in this guy, a real right-winger. He had the Azov Brigade that rode around with swastikas on it. And he gets in and he announces from now on, everybody in Ukraine must speak Ukrainian. Well, the whole eastern half of Ukraine is Russian because, you know, when they drew the law. So they had a civil war. And they killed about 10,000 people there before Putin invaded. And he kept begging us to stop it, you know. Anyway, it's...
So you're about to read us the article?
Did I tell you what he said? The guy that won the Nobel... This is so great because Japan, even though they've had this horrible thing with the atom bomb and, you know, we support the Hidankyo and we had this new treaty to eliminate nuclear weapons where Japan... The citizens of Japan were active, but the government of Japan is in the U.S. nuclear umbrella. That's we say we will use our nuclear weapons on your behalf if you don't get them.
So we're covered.
And even nuclear power was because of Japan, because we were testing in the South Pacific after the atom bomb. We were testing the hydrogen bomb, where the atom bomb is the trigger for the hydrogen bomb.
Oh boy.
That's how big these things are. And we did a test in the Marshall Islands or someplace, and we hit this Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon.
Right.
And Japan was furious at us. So we offered them free nuclear power.
In Fukushima.
Atoms for peace. That was to buy off Japan that they shouldn't be mad at us.
So the
And
gift
so now
was
they got
the nuclear
Fukushima.
plant.
Not only that, Trump just made, when he was president, made a deal with Saudi Arabia to make peace with Israel, which is why Hamas attacked, because he moved the Israeli capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and the two-state solution that they promised all these years, Jerusalem was going to be an international city. So Trump came in and made it the Israeli capital, and Hamas attacked, they say, unprovoked, you know. But what was I going to... Oh, they made a deal that Saudi Arabia would make peace with the Arabs, and they'd figure out a deal because they were always on the outside. And they promised Saudi Arabia that they could have nuclear power without the inspection of the International Atomic Energy Agency. In other words, here's the keys to your bomb factory. First of all, what do they need nuclear power for? They got all that sunlight and the oil we're not supposed to use, but they got more sun than anybody. Right. Anyway, it's hard times. It's hard times.
So under the climate, what Hidankyo...
So when they got the Nobel Peace Prize this time, I was very impressed because, of course, we care for the Hibashis. It's terrible what we did, but what's Japan going to do, you know? But they were saying, after it was announced, the chairman, Toshiyuki Mimaki?
Mimaki.
Mimaki said... it can't be real. It can't be real. We will appeal to the world. It is always done for the abolition of nuclear weapons and the achievement of an everlasting peace. Why Nihon Hidankyo? I thought for sure it would be the people working so hard in Gaza, as we've seen. And then he also compared Gaza today to Japan after the atomic bombing and the threats of Israel to perhaps blow up a nuclear site in Iran, which we're getting now. So the fact that he was willing to be so contemporary and not just talking about their own pain and sorrow, but relating it,
Yes,
that was very
it
helpful.
was very meaningful that he said that.
Right.
Because otherwise the Japanese people say next year makes the 80th year of
Right.
atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
That too, but relating to Gaza is more relevant.
They get to the horrors in the world. You know, that was one of the horrors of war making. It was a particularly horrible horror.
Yeah.
But it's gone on forever. What's the difference whether you're killed by a nuclear bomb or all kinds of bombs that we just killed all these people in Gaza? They're trying to eliminate.
Yes.
And I mean, when you think of the biblical story, I'm Jewish. Abraham is the father of the Jews. He's married to Sarah. They have a baby, Isaac, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling the story wrong. He's married to Sarah and she's barren. And she feels sorry, so she says to him, lay with my handmaiden Hagar so you can have a son. So Hagar gives birth to Ishmael. And when Sarah is 90 years old, she gets pregnant. And she gives birth to Isaac. And she doesn't like how Ishmael is playing with Isaac. And she says to Abraham, get rid of them. And he throws him out of the house. This is our brother. We have the same father. When they say anti-Semites, we're all Semites. I mean, what is the matter with us, right? It's a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. And it was a Jewish mother that did it. Anyway.
Is Jewish mother very education oriented?
Jewish mothers are supposed to be very strong and powerful, and I was telling her about my grandmother Helen, right?
Yes.
My mother's mother came from Hungary, and my daughter's named after her, Helen. And her husband, my grandfather, he was a tailor in Hungary. So when they came to New York as immigrants, he worked in the garment center. And he got in trouble because he was trying to organize the workers, for better working conditions. And they blackballed him. They wouldn't let him work there anymore. Oh, what are we going to do? So they borrowed money from cousins, $40, $30, and they opened up a newsstand on 79th and 3rd. This was the Hungarian neighborhood in New York. And they lost their license because my grandmother was illegally selling chocolate egg creams in the newsstand, and
She
they
wasn't supposed to be
only
selling food.
had a license to sell newspapers.
Only.
And they closed it down, and my grandma, oh my God, what are we going to do? They had 4 children, so my grandma says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And she goes down to City Hall with her 4 kids. My mother is the baby, 9 months old, and Miriam is a year, and Ella is 2, and Harold is 3. And she walks into this deputy mayor's office, and she sticks my mother on his desk. She says, you're not going to give me my license? You take my children. And she walks out. And he comes running down, the lady. So they give him the license, and then they had a candy store on York Avenue where they could sell legal egg creams and more.
What an activist.
But I mean, that was something.
Was she beautiful like your daughter?
No, she was good looking, but Helen comes from the Polish side of the family. My father had the blue eyes, and we're all mixed in. We're like. They were all good looking.
Yeah. Including you, actually.
Yeah, well, my sister was the beauty because she had the blue eyes and
Yeah, you look good for your age.
But this is very funny. She was the beauty and I was the smart one. And my mother said, you have to go to college and get married and be a teacher, because teaching's a good job, and this is what you got to do, right? So in my junior high school autograph book for my career, where you wrote your favorite movie, I wrote down housework for my career. and and I actually opened a blog called Global Housework, because I figured I'm telling the boys to put away their toys and clean up the mess they made.
The teachers, didn't they tell you that, can you think of something else, like architect?
No, nobody told us. And then I was like this genius kid. I was skipped. I got out of high school at 15, college at 19. I'm married. I'm teaching. My life is over. My sister, the beauty, because Martha was beautiful and Alice was smart. This is how we grew up. She went to music and art, and she got a part in an off-Broadway play, and she made a record. And my mother said, forget it, you got to get married, you got to be a teacher.
It's very structured.
So my daughter became the movie star. Her daughter went to Harvard. I mean, this was like fabulous. And I was invited up, this is so funny, I was invited up to Beth's Harvard graduation. Aunt Alice to come to be at Harvard. And the graduation speaker is Edvard Shevardnadze, Gorbachev's Secretary of State. And he's giving a whole talk on nuclear disarmament. And I'm sitting there writing copious notes, and they're looking at crazy Aunt Alice comes to the graduation.
She's coming for a lecture.
She's taking notes.
Wow. She's taking
anyway,
my
it was a cute story for both of us that our daughters did so well.
Yeah.
Well, my mother's story was terrible also, because my grandmother, Helen, when she got to America, she worked in the Triangle Shirt Factory, you know, that had the big fire.
Yes.
Not during the fire.
But she just worked
But
there.
she worked there,
there,
so
yeah.
she, but they knew about it. So my mother was very smart. She wouldn't let my mother go to high school. She says, you got to go to business school so you can be a bookkeeper, so you don't have to work in a factory. So my mother was so embarrassed. People would say, Sylvia, what high school did you go to? She'd always say Julia Richmond. So when my mother died at 96, I had to fill out the birth certificate, and it said high school. I wrote down Julia Richmond. I said, Mom, your secret
is going to the grave.
Yes, she'll like that. I'm sure she'll like that. You kept her secret.
I did. I mean, that was funny that they asked for the high school on the death certificate, but it was
really
there.
strange. Yeah.
It was funny.
Sounds prestigious, though. The
What?
school name.
It's right in my neighborhood. It's the Italian, because they grew up in my neighborhood. As a matter of fact, my aunt told me they used to play in Carlshart's Park. Do you know that, where Gracie Mansion is?
That's what we didn't make it there yet.
But that's where the mayor lives
Yes.
now, and it's an old. It was an old farmhouse. Carl Schurz owned the land. He was a German farmer or something. And my mother and my aunt said they used to run in and out of the haunted house because they lived in that neighborhood. And then LaGuardia in the 30s they restored it and made
Right.
it into Gracie Mansion where the mayor lives.
A lot of history behind
Except
all that.
Bloomberg never lived there. He had his own place, you know.
Oh no, he
They
that's-
gave the whole city away to the real estate agent.
Oh.
There's no place for people to live anymore in New York. It's terrible.
People are having a hard time trying
Terrible.
to find anything affordable.
I mean, they used to build public housing. When I grew up, we never had a homeless person. There are 60,000 homeless people in New
They
York
stopped
City.
building public housing.
Reagan stopped. And Clinton followed. He ended welfare as we know it. I mean, you know, these neoliberal Democrats, if you're for abortion rights and gay rights, Democrats are better than Republicans. But when it comes to the military or the big farmer forget it. It's the same party.
Right.
Yeah, because
They're the same.
my friend Hector, he used to live in a single room occupancy on the
Yeah.
west side on 96th Street in the 90s there.
Yeah, they're nice.
And he was, he had a good
It's like
job
a
in a
studio.
bank. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was an affordable rent. And then eventually he had to move because it was, They jacked up
It
the rents.
wasn't, yeah.
They were eliminating right at the same time
The
that was
rent
occurring.
is not stabilized. It will go
I
up.
was lucky. I got into rent stabilized, and that kept going up like it was $400 when I moved in for 2 bedrooms. I moved in with Helen. I told you she got into performing arts.
Right.
And then, so it was up to like, I don't know, it got as high as $1,300 after all these years. 2 bedrooms, 2 bed. But there's SCREE, senior citizen rent increase exemption. If you're over 65 and you're earning less than $50,000 a year, you can freeze it. So I was able to freeze it because I was living off my, when I left Grace, I had a buyout agreement. I mean, my mother's money that she left me, so I wasn't taking money out of my annuity. But once I started taking money out, my income went over $50,000.
Well, it's going to be more.
Between my Social Security, so I lost my rent thing. So the rent went up. Anyway,
They got you coming and going.
they should raise the SCREE because $50,000 is nothing.
That's nothing, yeah. Should be a little higher than that, yeah.
It's been that for like 40 years.
Yeah, they don't change
But
it.
these new guys didn't change anything good. It's only got worse. They call them neoliberals, the Democrats.
You mean the Adams? No.
The Clintons and the Obamas and the Bidens, they're not. I mean, Biden was on the Judiciary Committee when they okayed Clarence Thomas and they gave Anita Hill such a bad job. How did he get into this? I mean, I know this is not politics.
I heard that New York Times audio that this election is a gender election. Like more younger women from 18 to 29, they are voting Democrat, and the men from 19 to 29.
They don't want a woman.
No,
Right, they
no.
don't want a woman. They're not ready for a woman.
But you want to know something? That's baloney because she is a warmonger. They are not getting a single Palestinian American. I mean, we have millions of Palestinian American, descendants from the Middle East that are Americans, like you're
Yes.
from Puerto Rico and I'm from
Right.
Hungary and Poland, and there's a lot of them from the Middle East, and they're not going to vote for her because we're giving all these arms to Israel. We're the only ones arming Israel. There was a veto, and we vetoed a ceasefire resolution in the United Nations, the United States.
Yeah, the United
Every
States,
country
yeah.
in the world wanted to stop that war except us.
So which one is the evil country?
That's who is. Figure it out. Figure it out. But you can't say that.
Right.
You won't find- you won't
Because
see-
of the
yeah.
Mickey Mat, because people are not, they don't know what I know. Because for some reason, I'm in all this.
You're in the know.
I'm on the ground floor and I'm learning about what's really happening, like that knowing Ray McGovern,
Well, you connected with the right people to get that
I
knowledge.
did it. I told you how I started. Maybe I should. I don't know if we have time, but I was a housewife
We have time.
in Massapequa. You were at the table, right? When
Yeah.
I told you
Yes.
that. But should I say it again? How I became an activist, because I was not an activist. But I was watching television in 1968 in my suburban housewife, Massapequa, with the 2 babies, And they had a news story, a documentary was Walter Cronkite when they did real good news and reporting, and it showed old news film of Ho Chi Minh, the president of Vietnam, going to Woodrow Wilson after World War I, begging us to help him get the French out of Vietnam. They were so mean. They had rubber plantations. It was just like our cotton plant. They were terrible. And he even modeled his constitution after us. This is what they showed. And we turned him down because France was our ally. So the Soviets were more than happy to help, and that's how he became a communist. And the same night, the kids at Columbia, just like is happening now, and I
Right.
think that's what's going to save us, they started rioting. They were breaking down the doors and the windows. They didn't want to be drafted in that horrible Vietnam War. And I was terrified. this is America. What's the matter with these? My husband came home. What's the matter with these kids? Don't they know? I better do something.
That made you activist.
That's how I got active. And I went down. The Democratic Party was having a debate between the Hawks and the Doves. And I joined the Doves, and we were running Eugene McCarthy's campaign.
You are always good at debating or discussing, or speaking up.
I don't know. I guess so. Because when I got to Massapequa, this is the American dream. We have our own house with a lawn and a barbecue, right? And everything. We moved out of the Bronx. This was like, wow. I moved in there, and my next door neighbor, Stella Amirando, was on her hands and knees with a manicure scissor cutting the edge of her lawn. Oh my God.
What a lifestyle.
And then I had to go to therapy. I thought I was depressed, I thought I had anemia. They said, no, you're depressed. But I joined the American Association of University Women in Massapequa. That was fabulous. So I met my kind of women.
No more depression.
And it was interesting because it was the first time I met like Protestant and Catholic women because, we grew up in this Jewish neighborhood. It wasn't a Jewish neighborhood, but that was our whole life. And we had a literature group, and the head of the literature group, Constance Cantwell, was the chief librarian at Massapequa Library. And she went to Ireland every summer, and we read Ulysses for a year. She knew every secret.
She's
Ulysses.
a scholar, right?
Yeah, but Ulysses is like the greatest novel ever written, but it's impossible to read.
It's huge. That's a huge book.
No, but it's hard to understand. Yeah. And she was... And they asked me to be president. When I was 26, I was president. That was my first presidency of AUW. The president was leaving, and Alice, you should be president. I said, me? Yeah, you should be president.
Yes, you.
So that was like, it just happened like that.
I see.
Tell us the story about the, remember you were telling me that your horoscope?
Oh, didn't I tell you my horoscope, right?
Tell us that one again.
Probably heard April 16th.
Yeah, but I told you that story, right? Was that recorded?
Look, I forgot I heard it from the book.
Tell us that again. You
But my father, who was a CPA, wrote the exact minute of my birth on my birth certificate. I think you did that.
I think I heard that, but
we did it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway. We all had our horoscope done, and I had it accurate. And the woman was like, "You are so powerful." I was like this divorced mother. I don't know what the hell I was doing. You are so powerful. You are going to be a world leader, and you will never be acknowledged. How do you feel about that?
But you've already
So I
been
said, well, as long as I know I'm a world leader, I don't have to be. No, but I haven't. I'm not out front. I'm like the CIA of the Peace Prize.
She's incognito.
I'm not out there.
She's incognito.
I'm not running the campaign for the nuclear disarmament. I'm part of it. I was part of everything. I told her the most famous thing I did, which I forgot about completely, like world leader. In the nuclear disarmament, I've done a lot with that. You know about the Nobel Peace Prize. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Douglas Roach was the ambassador to Canada, Canadian ambassador to the UN for disarmament. And in the 90s, he put together a group called the Middle Powers Initiative, where he wanted to get the middle powers, like Canada and Ireland and New Zealand and Australia, to put pressure on the United States for nuclear disarmament. And he invited me to be on his board, and I'm on the board. And he's making all these delegations to governments, and I'm never invited, And I said to another guy on the board with me, I said, we're not going to be invited. We don't belong in those meetings. It's not for us. So then when we had 1 million people in the street for the Iraq war, protesting Iraq, he calls, he says, Alice, I want you to come up to Canada. And I go up to Canada, and he and I meet with Ambassador Cretian, the Ambassador Canada, just the three of us. He says, I want you to tell him that Canada should stay out of the Iraq.
Stay out of Iraq.
And he has this tough-talking New York Jewish girl telling him, don't go into Iraq. They don't have weapons of mass destruction. It's a lie. You shouldn't do it. And he listened to me. I was a world leader.
Good thing.
See, you were a world leader. See, you didn't know it.
I forgot to even acknowledge that.
Well, you're acknowledged now.
Anyway, but that was my my life's tale. It's still happening. I'm still
Yes.
doing stuff with
Thank you. Thank you for doing all that.
I can't help it. You don't have to thank me.
It's your nature.
I'm compulsive. I'm compulsively for peace. Yeah.
Did you?
As a matter of fact, I have to be careful. There are people I can't talk to, like
But
my children, my
do-
family.
Do you know those like highly achieving people? They have different gene. You probably have different gene.
You think so?
Yeah.
No.
They say-
Well, my whole family has genes. My daughter's a movie star, you know.
not only
my
appearance.
my niece's brother, Zach, is at Princeton. He's studying black holes. He got like 100. This is the smart one, Beth, the one to Harvard. Her
Yes.
son got like 100% on his SAT or
Oh,
something.
my goodness.
But now he's studying physics at Princeton. He's figuring out what's in the black hole.
The black hole.
Oh wow.
Interesting.
It runs in the family.
Yeah, it's running in the family.
Cutting edge. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you,
very cutting edge.
you
Yeah,
have
I
the,
mean,
Like
I'm
black
so
holes,
impressed.
Black holes.
you have the super
how
gene.
they created it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's really wonderful to be able to talk about it to you guys.
Thank you so much. We are going to continue
Wrap.
publishing the Alice Slater show.
Alice Slater, sure, or to write that book in the future, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, it's all written down. I don't know. I don't know how to put
Someone
together.
has to just edit it and put it
I know,
together.
but I have a friend who was the vice president at Norton Publisher,
Right.
and when she was staying with me, that she lives in Australia now, and when I told the minx coat story to them, she said, "Write that down. You should write." So I wrote it. I said, "Mary, what should I do with all these stories?" She said, "Give them to me." I give them to her. She never got back to me. She didn't know what to do with them.
Does she
I
still
don't
have
think
it?
they go together.
Oh.
No, I mean, it was like about 10 years ago. But
Right.
she couldn't.
Maybe we'll just do the publishing celebration podcast.
I'll give people the link to yours. I'll let you be my podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys are great. I know
Love
you have
hearing
another-
your story.